The message that changed galactic history arrived without fanfare, transmitted on all frequencies in a language so primitive that most civilizations' translation matrices initially classified it as background radiation. Only when the Vrexial Collective's deepest algorithms deciphered its contents did the true weight of the words become clear. To all non-terrestrial entities engaged in hostilities against Earth, strike once more and civility ends. This is your only warning. Admiral Lysithea Caney stood on the observation deck of the Last Horizon, Earth's final functional battleship, watching as the remnants of humanity's defense fleet drifted in orbital graves. Debris fields sparkled like perverse constellations against the blackness of space. The attack had been swift and devastating, 38 million dead in the first wave alone. "They're responding, Admiral," Lieutenant Orion Vex announced, his voice tight despite years of military discipline. The neural implant at his temple pulsed blue as he processed incoming data. "Multiple signatures. The Vrexial flagship is broadcasting." A holographic figure materialized in the center of the bridge, tall, with iridescent scales that shifted between copper and emerald. High Commander Medzik of the Vrexial Collective regarded the human survivors with compound eyes that betrayed no emotion. "Your species' defiance puzzles us," Medzik's translated voice echoed. "You've lost 80% of your orbital capability. 17 major population centers lie in ruins. Your transmission suggests you have some hidden advantage, yet our scans detect no such resources. Explain this paradox before we complete our cleansing." Lysithea stepped forward, her scarred face illuminated by the hologram's glow. "We require—" "No explanation, Commander. Our message stands. Withdraw your forces from Sol system immediately." "Interesting," Medzik's mandibles clicked. "Your species was deemed unworthy of collective inclusion due to your primitive technology and biological inefficiencies. Yet you speak with such certainty." "We speak with the knowledge of who we are," Lysithea replied. "Humanity wasn't born in the stars like your kind. We clawed our way up from the mud of our world, surviving predators, disease, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We don't need to be worthy of your inclusion." Behind her, the bridge crew worked frantically. Project Prometheus wasn't ready. Needed at least 6 more hours. But the Vrexial wouldn't wait that long. "You misunderstand galactic order," Medzik said. "Lesser species serve or perish. This is not cruelty but efficiency." On a private channel, Orion's voice filled Lysithea's ear. "Admiral, Prometheus status at 72%. Professor Ravenna says they need more time." Lysithea maintained her steady gaze on the alien commander. "Let me be clear, Commander. Humanity has walked a knife's edge between creation and destruction since we first harnessed fire. We've nearly annihilated ourselves a dozen times over. The only reason we haven't is because enough of us chose restraint." She stepped closer to the hologram. "But make no mistake, we've kept our darkest innovations locked away, not because we couldn't use them, but because we chose not to. Strike Earth again, and those constraints disappear." "Empty threats," Medzik dismissed. "Our analysis of human psychology indicates you're attempting to bluff." Deep beneath the lunar surface, Professor Alara Ravenna felt her hands trembling as she inputted the final sequences into the Prometheus array. 20 years of theoretical work compressed into a desperate 3-month building phase. Not a weapon in the traditional sense, something far worse. "Your analysis is flawed," Lysithea said quietly. "You've studied human history, but missed its central lesson. Push us to extinction, and we will take everyone with us." Medzik's hologram flickered. "The collective has encountered extinction-level resistance before. It changes nothing." Lysithea nodded at Orion, who transmitted a small data packet to the Vrexial flagship, the theoretical framework behind Project Prometheus. "What is this?" Medzik demanded, compound eyes widening slightly. The first emotional response they'd seen. "Insurance," Lysithea answered. Strike once more and civility ends. You have 1 hour to begin withdrawal. As the hologram disappeared, Lysithea turned to her crew. All stations, prepare for either victory or Prometheus activation. May whatever gods exist forgive us if it's the latter. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a hastily constructed laboratory carved from ancient regolith, Professor Ilara Ravenna watched the countdown timer with eyes that hadn't known proper sleep in weeks. Around her, the remaining scientists of Project Prometheus worked in grim silence, each understanding the weight of what they had created. Power fluctuation in Sector 7, called out Dr. Indran Kalki, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Compensating? Hold steady, Ilara replied, her voice calm despite the circumstances. Remember, we only need to convince them we can do it. Actually, having to activate is unthinkable. The Prometheus array wasn't humanity's first doomsday device. It was their last. Unlike nuclear weapons or kinetic bombardment, Prometheus targeted something far more fundamental, the fabric of local space-time itself. Theoretical physics had suggested the possibility decades ago, but ethical concerns had kept the research theoretical until the Vrexial arrived. Incoming transmission from Last Horizon, announced Kira Zhang, their communications specialist. Admiral Caney requests status. Ilara activated the secure channel. Admiral, Prometheus is at 84%. We need another 40 minutes minimum. We may not have 40 minutes, Professor. Lysithea's voice came through tight with controlled tension. Vrexial ships are repositioning. Intelligence suggests they're preparing another strike. On the main view screen, Ilara could see the tactical display showing dozens of alien vessels moving into attack formation. Earth, beautiful and wounded, hung in the background. Blue oceans now marred with the brown scars of impact sites. They think we're bluffing, Ilara said. Then we need to convince them otherwise, Lysithea replied. Can we transmit a targeted demonstration? Ilara exchanged glances with her team. What the Admiral was suggesting hadn't been tested. Using Prometheus on a microscale could destabilize the entire system. There's a reason we built this on the far side of the moon, Admiral, Ilara said. Even a controlled demonstration risks cascading failure. But there might be a way. She gestured to Indran, who began reconfiguring the array's targeting parameters. We can create a localized field that should be visible to their sensors without triggering full collapse. It's dangerous, but less dangerous than full activation. Back on the Last Horizon, Lysithea received an urgent alert. Admiral, Lieutenant Orion reported. We're detecting weapons activation across the Vrexial fleet. Estimated firing time in 6 minutes. Lysithea's jaw tightened. Professor, whatever. You're planning, do it now. We're out of time. In the lunar lab, Ilara initiated the sequence. Diverting 20% power to demonstration field. Targeting empty space 5,000 kilometers from the Vrexial flagship. The lights dimmed as the array drained power from the facility. On monitors around the lab, equations scrolled rapidly as the quantum calculations processed. What they were about to do had never been attempted, creating a bubble of altered space-time where the fundamental constants of physics would briefly shift. Field generation in 3, 2, 1. A point of absolute darkness appeared in space, visible on all sensors, not merely absence of light, but absence of everything. For 3 seconds, it expanded to a kilometer-wide sphere where space-time itself folded inward, creating a region where matter simply couldn't exist as matter anymore. Then, just as quickly, it collapsed back to nothingness. The effect on the Vrexial fleet was immediate. Ships scattered from the demonstration site, breaking their careful attack formation. Admiral, Orion reported with disbelief, the Vrexial have ceased weapons charging. They're pulling back to minimum safe distance. A tense minute passed before Commander Mezek's hologram appeared again on the Last Horizon's bridge. What abomination have you created? The alien commander demanded, mandibles clicking rapidly in what intelligence suggested was their version of distress. Lysithea met the alien's compound gaze steadily. That was less than a quarter of Prometheus's capability, focused on empty space. The full array can generate a field 30 times larger, and we have it aimed at your flagship. Such technology violates Galactic Concord principles, Mezek said, his usual confidence faltering. No civilized species would, we warned. You, Lysithea interrupted. Strike once more, and civility ends. We will unleash Prometheus across your entire fleet if necessary. Your choices are simple. Leave our system in peace, or discover exactly how uncivilized humanity can become when extinction is the alternative. 72 hours after the Prometheus demonstration, the first ever human delegation stood aboard, the Vrexial command vessel Eternal Dominion. The massive ship's interior was designed for beings with different atmospheric requirements and evolutionary paths. The air thinner, gravity stronger, lighting cast in spectrums that made human eyes water. Admiral Lysithea Caney led the small team, flanked by Professor Alara Ravenna and diplomat Cassian Vale, whose linguistic implants worked overtime to process the complex harmonics of Vrexial speech. Remember, Lysithea whispered as they were, led down crystalline corridors by silent guards. Show no weakness. The Vrexial respect power above all else. The diplomatic chamber they entered was circular, with 7 elevated platforms arranged around a central pit. On each platform stood representatives of the species that comprised the Vrexial collective, not merely allies, but conquered civilizations, incorporated into the hive-minded empire. Commander Mezek occupied the highest platform, his iridescent scales catching the light. Beside him stood a willowy being with translucent skin through which complex circulatory systems were visible. A luminari, according to their briefings, one of the first species subjugated by the Vrexial centuries ago. The human delegation is recognized, announced a mechanical voice from somewhere above. You stand before the 7 pillars of the collective. Cassian stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his measured movements. We come seeking understanding of your retreat and assurances it will continue. A ripple of clicking sounds, laughter, spread through the chamber. You mistake tactical reassessment for retreat, Mezek responded. The collective has existed for 12,000 years by adapting to new threats. Your Prometheus device is concerning, but not definitive. Ilara noticed subtle movements among the other representatives. Was that discomfort? Fear? The Prometheus array isn't a bargaining chip, she said, breaking protocol to speak directly. It's extinction insurance. Use of the device would destroy not just your fleet but potentially destabilize the entire solar system. Yet you threaten to use it, said another representative. A gelatinous entity floating in a containment field. This suggests your species is as primitive as initially assessed, willing to destroy yourselves for vengeance. Lysithea stepped forward. Not vengeance, deterrence. Humanity survived because we understood something your collective never learned. The strongest position isn't domination, but mutually assured destruction. An archaic concept, Mezek dismissed. The collective absorbs or eliminates. There is no middle ground. Then perhaps the collective's philosophy requires updating, Cassian interjected smoothly. We've studied your history during our journey here. 12,000 years of expansion, yet your population growth has stagnated in the last millennium. Your technological advancement curves have flattened. You consume resources at unsustainable rates. The chamber grew silent. Lysithea noted the subtle shift in the other representatives' postures. Cassian had struck a nerve. The human speaks irrelevance, said another representative, a crystalline entity whose voice resonated like struck glass. The purpose of this meeting was to negotiate the surrender of the Prometheus technology. That's not happening, Ilara said firmly. The knowledge dies with Earth if necessary. Mezek descended from his platform until he towered over the humans. Then perhaps Earth dies regardless. Our analysis suggests your Prometheus device requires specific positioning. Our forces could strike from beyond its effective range. You could, Lysithea acknowledged, but you won't. She activated a small projector, displaying a series of coordinates throughout Vrexial space. These are the locations of 17 Prometheus, arrays we launched via stealth vessels during the first attack. Small, limited-range versions, but each positioned near critical Vrexial worlds. The lie was absolute. Earth barely had resources to build the one array, but the tactical assessment in their briefings suggested the Vrexial wouldn't risk calling their bluff. Chaos erupted in the chamber as representatives shouted over each other. Mezek's compound eyes fixed on Lysithea with newfound respect, or perhaps hatred. Impossible, he hissed. Our sensors would have detected the same sensors that dismissed our warning transmission as background radiation? Ilara interrupted. Your technological arrogance is your blind spot, Commander. Through the cacophony, the Luminari representative floated down from her platform, approaching the humans directly. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic. I have studied your species from afar, she said. You are young, volatile, but possess remarkable adaptive traits. Perhaps the collective has miscalculated in more ways than one. She turned to Mezek. The first protocol may apply here, Commander. The chamber fell silent again, tension vibrating through the air. The first protocol has not been invoked in 3 millennia, Mezek protested. Yet it exists for precisely this circumstance, the luminary countered, when standard assimilation proves contraindicated. Lysithea exchanged glances with her team, their implants unable to provide context for this exchange. What is this first protocol? She asked. The Luminari's translucent features formed what might have been a smile. An alternative to conquest. Commander Mezek will explain the terms, if he remembers how. The terms of the first protocol weren't favorable to humanity, but they were survivable. As Lysithea reviewed them on the return journey to Earth, she understood they had achieved something unprecedented. The first species in recorded history to force the Vrexial collective into a non-assimilation agreement. Restricted, travel beyond our solar system, she summarized for her team in the shuttle's conference room. Limited communication with non-collective species. Annual inspections to ensure we're not manufacturing more Prometheus-type weapons. And a cultural exchange program, which is really just a euphemism for hostages. Cassian nodded grimly. 100 humans to live among the collective, 100 collective representatives to observe Earth. It's not ideal, but it's a foothold, Ilara interrupted, her eyes bright with an intensity that had been absent during the negotiations. You missed something crucial during the talks, the dynamics between the representatives. She activated the shuttle's secure display, showing footage from their meeting. Watch the Luminari delegate when Mezek speaks. The subtle posture shifts. The micro-expressions. There's resistance there, buried deep, but present. Lysithea studied the footage. You think the collective isn't as unified as they present? I think 12,000 years of conquest creates pressure points, Ilara replied. Think about it. 7 distinct species forced into a hierarchical structure. The Vrexial at the top, obviously, but the others, they've been subjugated for millennia. Orion, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. The first protocol itself suggests fractures. Why have an alternative to assimilation unless there were cases where assimilation failed? Cassian's diplomatic training kicked in. Historical. Precedent suggests all empires develop internal strains proportional to their expansion rate. The collective has consumed hundreds of civilizations. There must be resistance movements, which means we need to carefully select our 100 representatives, Lysithea concluded. People who can identify those fractures and potentially exploit them. The shuttle's communication system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission from Earth. General Takoda's weathered face appeared on screen. "Welcome back, Admiral," he said. "The Security Council has reviewed your preliminary report. They're concerned about the cultural exchange provision." "As they should be," Lysithea acknowledged. "But I see opportunity there as well as risk." "Explain." "The collective isn't the monolith they pretend to be," she said. "During negotiations, I observed subtle conflicts between the representatives. If we choose our exchange members carefully, people trained in anthropology, linguistics, psychology, we can map these divisions." Ilara added, "And the 100 representatives they send us? Everyone will be an intelligence goldmine. We'll learn more about collective technology, biology, and social structures in a year than we could in decades of conventional intelligence gathering." General Takoda's expression remained grave. "The Council fears infiltration, that these representatives will be spies or saboteurs." "Of course they will be," Cassian said with a thin smile. "Just as ours will be. This is first contact diplomacy, General, the oldest game with the highest stakes." Lysithea turned to Orion. "Lieutenant, what's the status of Project Hemlock?" Orion verified their communication security before answering. 93% complete. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, Admiral, we need insurance beyond Prometheus, Lysithea confirmed. Something subtle that can't be detected in inspections. On the view screen, General Takoda looked troubled. "Admiral, treading this line is dangerous. The agreement is barely formed with—" "Respect, General," Lysithea interrupted. "The Vrexiel tried to exterminate us without provocation. They've done the same to countless species before us. This agreement isn't peace. It's a ceasefire while they reassess. We need every advantage." Silence filled the shuttle as her words sank in. Finally, Takoda nodded. "Very well. When you land, you'll be taken directly to the bunker for full debriefing. The President wants your assessment of our guests." "Guests?" Ilara asked. "The collective didn't waste time," Takoda explained. "Their advance representatives arrived 12 hours ago." Later, as the shuttle approached Earth's atmosphere, Lysithea stood alone in the observation bay, watching her wounded planet grow larger. The massive impact craters were visible even from orbit, permanent scars of humanity's first interstellar conflict. "We survived," Orion said, joining her at the viewport. "That's more than many species can claim after meeting the collective." "Survival isn't enough," Lysithea replied quietly. "I saw something in the Luminari delegate's eyes when she mentioned the first protocol. Not just resistance, but hope. As if we represent something they've been waiting for." Orion considered this. "A catalyst?" "Precisely." Lysithea's reflection in the glass overlaid the approaching Earth, her expression resolute. "And I intend to ensure humanity becomes exactly that." 5 years passed under the uneasy treaty. Earth rebuilt slowly, the crater scars gradually filling with new architecture designed for defensive capabilities as much as habitation. The 100 collective representatives, 17 Vrexiel and the remainder from the 6 subjugated species, had been integrated into observation posts around the globe, their movements carefully monitored while maintaining the illusion of diplomatic courtesy. In her office beneath the rebuilt Geneva complex, Lysithea reviewed the latest intelligence from humanity's own representatives embedded within collective territories. The reports were transmitted through quantum-entangled particles, a communication method the human delegation had kept secret from their hosts. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying the data. "Central hub activity shows increasing faction isolation. The Luminari delegates haven't attended collective governance sessions in over 2 months. Admiral Lysithea had been promoted to Director of Xenopolitical Affairs after returning from the initial negotiations, a position created specifically to manage the delicate balance of compliance and resistance that defined Earth's relationship with the collective. A soft tone announced a visitor. "Enter," she called. Cassian Vale entered, now bearing the title of Chief Diplomatic Liaison. The years had added silver to his temples, but sharpened his political acumen. Director, our Medusan contact has transmitted something unexpected. He placed a small holographic projector on her desk. The image that appeared showed what appeared to be a massive construction project in deep space, far from established collective territories. "What am I looking at?" Lysithea asked. "We're not entirely sure," Cassian admitted, "but based on the scale and energy signatures, it appears to be a weapons platform of unprecedented size. Construction began approximately 8 months ago, shortly after the Vrexial hegemony suppressed the Calistan uprising." Lysithea frowned. "The collective didn't report this to the Oversight Committee." "Exactly. Which violates Article 7 of the First Protocol, full disclosure of military developments. Within 3 parsecs of Sol." Lysithea studied the projection. "Have you shared this with Ilara?" "She's analyzing the technical specifications now, but her preliminary assessment is concerning. The energy output suggests capabilities that could overwhelm our defensive grid." A soft chime from Lysithea's computer indicated an incoming priority: communication. Professor Ilara Ravenna's face appeared on screen, her expression grim. "I need both of you in the Prometheus chamber immediately," she said without preamble. "Our luminary guest has made contact." 20 minutes later, they gathered in the most secure location on Earth, the monitoring station for the Prometheus array, which had been maintained in operational readiness despite never being activated beyond the demonstration. Inside, they found Ilara with an unexpected visitor, Nyala, the Luminari representative who had been assigned to the Geneva observation post. The Luminari's translucent form seemed to pulse with internal light as she acknowledged their arrival. "Director Caney, Liaison Vale, thank you for agreeing to this unorthodox meeting." "This facility is restricted," Lysithea said coldly. "Explaining how you gained access would be a good start. Your security is impressive by most standards," Nyala replied, "but Luminari perception operates beyond conventional sensory boundaries. However, that's not important now." She gestured to a data crystal on the central table. "What matters is this." Ilara picked up the crystal. "This contains detailed schematics for the weapons platform Cassian discovered, along with deployment timetables. The Vrexial are planning to eliminate Earth within the next 60 days. "Impossible," Cassian objected. "The first protocol is being officially rescinded at the next council meeting," Nyala interrupted. "Commander Mezek has convinced the hegemony that humanity represents an existential threat to collective stability." "Because of Prometheus?" Lysithea asked. "Not just your weapon," Nyala replied. "Because of what you've accomplished in 5 years. Your 100 representatives have been effective." Understanding dawned on Lysithea's face. "The uprisings, Calistan, Mirova, the Thexian mining colonies, all inspired by human ideas," Nyala confirmed. "Concepts your people take for granted: self-determination, representative governance, freedom of thought. These are radical notions in a collective built on assimilation and hierarchy." Ilara studied the Luminari with newfound curiosity. "You're not here just to warn us, are you?" Nyala's inner luminescence flickered in what they had learned was a Luminari expression of determination. "For 8,000 years, my people have been the enlightened advisors of the Vrexial, privileged slaves with no hope of freedom. Then humanity appeared, a species willing to face extinction rather than submission." She moved closer, her translucent features intense. "There are resistance movements throughout the collective, Director Caney. Dispersed, cautious, but growing. What we lacked was coordination and hope." "And you think we can provide that?" Cassian asked. "You already have. The question now is whether Earth will lead openly what it has already begun in secret." Lysithea's mind raced through strategic calculations. "You're proposing an alliance against the Vrexial hegemony, a rebellion. I'm proposing the formation of something that has never existed in our region of space, Nyala corrected. A federation of equals, built on mutual respect rather than conquest. Very idealistic, Cassian noted. But ideals don't stop plasma cannons. If the intelligence is accurate, we have 60 days before the Vrexial launch their attack. Even with Prometheus, we can't defend against a platform of that magnitude. We don't need to defend, Ilara said suddenly, her eyes bright with realization. Nyala, how many representatives from subjugated species would join your cause? All of them, the luminary replied without hesitation. 83 representatives across 7 classification zones, and each has cultivated networks within their assigned regions. Lysithea exchanged glances with her colleagues, a dangerous plan forming. Project Hemlock, she said quietly. Ilara nodded. It's ready. Has been for 3 years. What is Project Hemlock? Nyala asked. Insurance, Lysithea answered. While the Vrexial were watching Prometheus, we developed something far more subtle. A targeted bio-digital pathogen designed specifically for Vrexial neural architecture. Non-lethal, but capable of temporarily disrupting their hive-mind coordination. A precision weapon, Cassian elaborated, meant to disable rather than destroy. And you could deploy this across the entire collective? Nyala's inner light pulsed with what might have been hope. With help, Ilara said. We need access points. Within their central systems, your 83 representatives could provide that. For the first time, Lysithea saw what appeared to be a smile form on the Luminari's fluid features. Then perhaps, Nyala said, it's time for humanity to send its final transmission to the Vrexial hegemony. The observation deck of the Diplomatic. Vessel New Dawn offered a panoramic view of the approaching collective armada. Despite the ostensible peace, the Vrexial had arrived with 50 warships, ostensibly for the 5-year treaty review. But Lysithea knew better. This was to be an execution, not a negotiation. All Hemlock vectors are in position, Ilara reported, her voice calm despite the stakes. Nyala confirms 81 of 83 representatives successfully deployed the transmission nodes. Beside her, Cassian monitored diplomatic channels. Mezik's flagship is requesting immediate docking. They're citing protocol violations, claiming our defensive grid exceeds permitted parameters. A pretext, Lysithea noted. They know we've discovered their weapons platform. The past 60 days had transformed Earth's strategy. Rather than preparing for a hopeless defense, they had embraced Nyala's proposal, channeling resources into what was now called the Federation Initiative. Across collective space, subjugated species had been quietly organized, waiting for the signal that would coincide with Hemlock's activation. Incoming transmission from the Vrexial flagship, announced Orion, now commander of Earth's defense forces. Commander Mezik's hologram materialized, his posture radiating contempt. Director Caney, our sensors detect unusual activity within your system. Explain immediately. Merely preparations for the 5-year review, Lysithea replied evenly. We're eager to discuss the weapons platform your hegemony is constructing in violation of Article 7. Mezik's compound eyes narrowed. Your espionage networks are more extensive than anticipated. No matter, they will be dismantled along with your civilization. The first protocol has been rescinded by unanimous decision of the 7 pillars. Unanimous? Lysithea raised an eyebrow. That's strange, considering 3 of your pillars have formally withdrawn from the collective, as of 20 minutes ago. For the first time, she saw genuine shock in the Vrexial commander's expression. Impossible. The collective neural link would have been compromised? Ilara interrupted, stepping into view. Technological arrogance remains your blind spot. Commander, on cue, displays around the observation deck lit up with incoming transmissions, not from Earth, but from across collective space. The Luminary homeworld, the Thexian colonies, the Medusan deep space habitats, all broadcasting the same message in their native languages. We withdraw from the collective. Effective immediately. Medzic's hologram flickered as he received the same transmissions. "What have you done?" he hissed. "Fulfilled our promise," Lysithea answered calmly. "You were warned 5 years ago. Strike once more and civility ends. Your weapons platform constitutes that strike." She nodded to Alara, who initiated the Hemlock Protocol with a simple command. Across the Vrexial fleet, their bio-neural command systems began shutting down, not destroyed, but temporarily paralyzed as the pathogen spread through their networked consciousness. "This is not destruction," Lysithea continued as Medzic's hologram began to distort. "This is liberation. Your ships will remain functional on emergency systems. Your personnel will be unharmed. But the collective neural network that has maintained your control for 12,000 years is being severed. You cannot." Mezzik struggled to maintain coherence as his connection to the hive mind faltered. "The collective is eternal." "Nothing is eternal, Commander," Cassian interjected. "Especially not empires built on subjugation." As the hologram collapsed, Orion reported, "Vrexial fleet showing massive system failures, weapons offline, communication arrays disabled. They're drifting." Outside the viewport, the mighty warships that had once reduced Earth's cities to rubble now floated powerless. Without the neural network to coordinate their actions, the Vrexial crews were reduced to isolated individuals, still dangerous, but no longer a unified force. "Second phase transmissions confirmed," Alara announced. "The Federation initiative is broadcasting on all collective frequencies. On screens throughout the ship, billions of beings across formerly collective space were receiving the same message. A joint declaration authored by representatives of Earth and the liberated species. Today marks the end of the Vrexial Collective and the birth of the Stellar Federation, a union of sovereign species bound by mutual respect and common purpose. No more conquest, no more assimilation. Every world determines its own path, while standing united against those who would impose their will through force." Nyala entered the observation deck, her translucent form almost luminous with emotion. "It's working. Reports from 67 systems confirm successful Hemlock deployment. The Vrexial command structure has collapsed." "And the weapons platform?" Lysithea asked. "Disabled by its own Luminary engineers," Nyala replied with satisfaction. "They've been waiting for this moment for generations." Lysithea moved to the viewport, watching as smaller vessels from Earth approached the disabled Vrexial ships to establish communication with their confused crews. "What happens to the Vrexial themselves?" Orion asked. "They're still a powerful species, even without their network. They join the Federation as equals," Cassian answered. "Not rulers, not conquered, equals. It will be difficult for them to adjust, but necessary." "And if they refuse?" Orion pressed. Lysithea turned from the viewport. "Then they isolate themselves within their original territories. The Federation doesn't conquer, Commander. That's the entire point. We offer membership, not ultimatums." Alara's terminal chimed with incoming data. "Initial reports from liberated worlds are pouring in. There's confusion, celebration, some chaos. This transition won't be simple." "Revolutions never are," Lysithea acknowledged. "But for the first time in 12,000 years, dozens of species are determining their own futures." She activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting to Earth and the waiting human population that had endured invasion, loss, and an uncertain peace. "People of Earth," she began. 5 years ago, we sent a final transmission before facing extinction. Strike once more, and civility ends. Today, we fulfilled that promise, not through destruction, but transformation. The Vrexial Collective no longer exists as an empire of conquest. In its place stands the opportunity for something unprecedented, a true federation of diverse species united by principles rather than force. She paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed to hold only threat, now filled with possibility. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community nearly ended our species. Instead, they revealed our greatest strength, not our technology or weapons, but our stubborn insistence that freedom is the birthright of all sentient beings. The road ahead will be challenging, but today, that principle has transformed our galaxy. As her words spread across Earth and beyond, Lysithea knew this was just the beginning. The Federation would face countless challenges: internal divisions, lingering Vrexial resistance, the practical difficulties of uniting wildly different species around common principles. But for the first time since the Vrexial had appeared in Earth's skies, she felt something beyond determination or defiance. She felt hope. Outside the viewport, the first diplomatic shuttles from formerly subjugated worlds approached the new dawn, representatives of species that had never before been permitted direct contact with one another without Vrexial oversight. Lysithea watched as vessels of wildly different designs converged, organic-looking luminary ships that seemed to pulse with inner light, crystalline Thexian craft that refracted starlight into prismatic patterns, and dozens more representing civilizations humanity had yet to formally meet. This, she whispered, is what victory truly looks like. 1 year after the fall of the Vrexial Collective, the Stellar Federation Conclave gathered for its inaugural formal assembly. The venue was symbolic: a massive space station constructed in orbit around a previously restricted world that had once served as the Vrexial's most sacred temple planet. Now it represented something profoundly different: neutral ground, where all member species stood as equals. Lysithea Kane, now serving as Earth's first Federation ambassador, stood on the observation platform overlooking the Grand Assembly Chamber. Representatives from 78 formerly subjugated species filled the tiered seating, their diverse physiologies requiring specialized environmental accommodations that would have been forbidden under Vrexial rule. "Nervous?" asked Nyala, appearing silently beside her. The luminary diplomat had become one of Lysithea's closest allies during the tumultuous transition year. "Realistic," Lysithea replied. "What we've built remains fragile. The Vrexial isolationists grow more hostile by the day. Since the neural network's dissolution, Vrexial society had fractured. A significant minority had accepted Federation membership, embracing a new identity separate from their imperial past. But the majority had withdrawn to their ancestral territories, their once unified consciousness now fragmented into competing factions, some seeking restoration of their former glory, others simply struggling to define existence without the hive mind that had guided them for millennia. "You worry they'll recover and strike back," Nyala observed. "I worry about many things," Lysithea admitted. "The Vrexial threat, yes, but also whether this Federation can truly function as we envisioned. 78 species with different evolutionary paths, different values, different concepts of governance." "Different, yes," came Alara's voice as she joined them, "but united by something stronger than the collective's forced assimilation." The scientist had transformed as much as anyone. Over the past 6 years, once focused solely on theoretical physics, she now served as Earth's scientific liaison to the Federation, coordinating technological exchange between member worlds. "The assembly is ready to begin," announced Cassian, approaching with a group of diplomats representing worlds from across former collective space. "The Accords will be presented for ratification." The Stellar Federation Accords represented a year of intense negotiation, establishing principles of sovereignty, mutual defense, scientific cooperation, and cultural exchange. Unlike the hierarchical structure of the collective, the Federation operated on consensus, with safeguards to prevent larger or more technologically advanced species from dominating others. As they made their way to the chamber floor, Orion met them at the entrance, his military uniform now bearing the insignia of the newly formed Federation Defense Force. "Security report," he said quietly to Lysithea. "Our deep space relays have detected unusual activity in the exclusion zone. The Vrexial isolationists appear to be testing a new propulsion technology." "Military application?" "Unclear. But their communications chatter suggests increased unification among the competing factions." Lysithea nodded, filing the information away. The threat would always remain. Former conquerors rarely accepted their reduced status permanently. Inside the chamber, thousands of representatives fell silent as the Federation Council took their positions at the central podium. 7 members, elected, from different species across the Federation, prepared to present the accords for final ratification. To Lysithea's surprise, the council chairperson, a Medusan whose tentacled form rippled with bioluminescent patterns, gestured for her to join them on the podium. "Representatives of the Stellar Federation," the chairperson's translated voice resonated through the chamber. "Before we proceed with ratification, the Council unanimously requests that Ambassador Caney of Earth address this historic assembly." Murmurs spread through the gathered delegates as Lysithea approached the central position. She had prepared no speech, expecting only to vote alongside Earth's delegation. Looking out at the assembled representatives, beings of every conceivable form and evolutionary path, united not by conquest but by choice, she understood what was being asked of her. Earth, the catalyst that had shattered 12,000 years of oppression, needed to articulate the vision that had brought them to this moment. "1 year ago," she began, her voice steady, "a transmission spread across what was then collective space. It was not a declaration of war, though it ended an empire. It was not a proclamation of victory, though it liberated billions. It was an invitation to imagine a galaxy governed not by force, but by principle." The chamber remained silent, representatives of dozens of species focusing their attention through whatever sensory organs they possessed. The Vrexial believed strength flowed from uniformity, that diversity was weakness to be engineered away through assimilation or conquest. For 12,000 years, that belief went unchallenged. Until Earth, she paused, meeting the compound eyes and sensory appendages of various delegates. Not because humans possess unique courage or wisdom. We don't. Many of your civilizations endured oppression for millennia while maintaining your cultural identity and hope for freedom. What Earth provided wasn't superior strength or intelligence, but a catalyst, the right disruption at the right moment. Across the chamber, translation devices rendered her words into the native languages and communication formats of each species. The accords before us today represent something unprecedented. Not a peace between conquerors and conquered, not an alliance of convenience, but a genuine federation of equals. Each member world retains its sovereignty while committing to collective security and mutual respect. She gestured toward the space visible through the chamber's transparent dome. Stars, that had once been viewed with fear, now representing possibility. "We face serious challenges. The Vrexial isolationists grow restless. Border disputes between newly independent worlds threaten stability in 3 sectors. Ancient grievances between species who were forced to compete for collective resources remain unresolved." Acknowledgement rippled through the assembly. No one harbored illusions about the difficulties ahead. But today, we choose a different path than the one that dominated this region of space for 12,000 years. We choose cooperation over conquest, diversity over uniformity, freedom over submission. She looked toward the Earth delegation, humans, who had faced extinction and emerged as architects of liberation. "When the Vrexial first attacked Earth, we sent a final transmission. Strike once more, and civility ends. It was understood as a threat, but it was actually a promise that facing extinction, humanity would abandon restraint to ensure survival. Today we make a different promise to each other and all who would join us, that the civility we maintain between our worlds is not weakness, but our greatest strength. As she concluded, the chamber erupted in the multitude of sounds that constituted applause across different species, clicks, hums, light pulses, and vibrations blending into a symphony of approval. The council chairperson moved forward again. We will now proceed with the vote on the Stellar Federation Accords. One by one, representatives of 78 worlds registered their votes, some through voice, others through gesture, some through technological interfaces adapted to their unique physiologies. When completed, the result was unanimous. As celebration spread through the chamber, Lysithea rejoined her colleagues. An excellent speech, Cassian commented. Though I suspect our work is just beginning. Always, Lysithea agreed. But for the first time, we're not doing it alone. Ilara's communication device chimed softly. The Prometheus monitoring station is reporting unusual readings from the lunar installation, she said after reviewing the message. I should return to Earth immediately. Trouble, Orion asked sharply. Not danger, Ilara clarified, but something unexpected. The quantum field is exhibiting patterns we've never seen before. Go, Lysithea instructed. Cassian and I will complete the diplomatic formalities here. As the celebration continued, around them, Nyala approached with another luminary, one whose internal luminescence pulsed with patterns indicating advanced age and status. Ambassador Caney, Nyala said, may I present Elder Soreth of the Luminary High Council? She wishes to share something that may be significant to humanity's understanding of recent events. The Elder's voice resonated with harmonics that the translation devices struggled to fully capture. Your speech was most illuminating, Ambassador. You credit humanity as merely a catalyst in these events. Perhaps that is true, but not in the way you imagine. Lysithea tilted her head questioningly. The Luminari have preserved histories that predate our conquest, the Elder continued. 12,000 years ago, before the Vrexial expansion, our astronomers detected unusual signals from a distant star system, patterns that could not be natural, yet did not match any known civilization. First contact with another species? Cassian asked. So we believed. Our scientists spent decades deciphering the transmissions. When they finally succeeded, they found a simple message, repeating across centuries. The Elder's inner light pulsed, rhythmically. It translates roughly as, strike once more, and civility ends. Lysithea felt a chill pass through her. That's impossible. Those were Earth's words, spoken 5 years ago. Yet they echo through time, the Elder replied. Our ancestors tracked the transmissions to their source, a small blue world in a system the Vrexial would later classify as insignificant. A world called Earth. Silence fell between them as implications spiraled. You're suggesting? Lysithea began. I suggest nothing, the Elder said. I merely share what our secret histories record. Perhaps it is coincidence. Perhaps it is error, or perhaps... Her luminescence shifted to patterns suggesting amusement. Perhaps causality is more complex than either of our species fully comprehends. Before Lysithea could press further, the Elder turned away, joining other Luminary delegates. What was that about? Orion asked, having overheard portions of the exchange. Lysithea stared after the Elder, her mind racing through possibilities that defied conventional understanding. I'm not entirely sure, she admitted, but I think we just received a message from our own future. Or past, Cassian murmured. The implications would require extensive consideration, but in this moment of celebration, Lysithea focused on the reality before her. Representatives of dozens of species, formerly enemies or strangers under collective. rule, now engaging as equals in the first true interstellar democracy this region of space had ever known. Whatever causal loop might exist, whatever challenges lay ahead with the fractured Vrexial or between newly liberated worlds, humanity had transformed from prey to catalyst, from victims to architects. Earth's final transmission had indeed ended civility, the false civility of empire, and replaced it with something far more profound, authentic cooperation between truly free worlds. As the newly ratified Federation Accords were formally recorded, Lysithea found herself thinking not of the past 6 years of struggle, but of the centuries of possibility that now stretched before them. Whatever paradox the Elder's words suggested would be a question for another day. Today was for celebrating a promise fulfilled, not the promise of destruction that had saved Earth from the Vrexial, but the promise of a galaxy transformed. Outside, the station viewport, ships from dozens of worlds performed a synchronized light display, each expressing celebration in their own cultural tradition, yet forming a coherent whole visible across thousands of kilometers of space. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but it was fitting. Diverse elements, moving independently yet in harmony, creating something beautiful that none could achieve alone. The final transmission from Earth had indeed changed everything, not by ending civilization, but by beginning a new one.